So why are you here? No, I mean, why are you on earth? What did you come here for? Did you come to be a butcher, baker, candlestick maker? Did you come to be a wife, a husband? Did you come to be a Reiki practitioner, a doctor, a lawyer, managing director of Vodacom? Why are you here? Have you ever stopped to ask that question? The primary reason that we come to earth is the same for every single one of us. However, we get caught up with our secondary reason for being here. And the secondary reason is to be the plumber and the baker and the butcher and the mother-in-law and the corrupt politician. That's our secondary reason for being here. But our primary reason is to heal. And what does the word heal mean? Anyone know? To make whole. To make whole. To come back to who and what you really are. You fragmented yourself a long, long time ago in a journey of hide and go seek. Anyone played hide and go seek before? What's the fun part of the game? Hiding. And 2 days hiding behind the couch. What's the next fun part of the game? To be found. So you run off and you find the best hiding place in the whole town. When you're a kid, they can't see your legs, so you can stand here and no one finds you. But after a while, you want to be found. Am I right? And that's the cycle we're journeying on at the moment. The cycle of finding ourselves again. And that's why we've come to earth. To become whole again. To become who we really are. Now, in the hiding part, we found a tremendous place to hide. And it's not behind the couch. Where did we find to hide? Anyone want to guess at that? We've hidden in our mind. We have created a fantastic dark place called the Matrix. And we've hidden ourselves in the Matrix. And the Matrix is an accumulation of the thoughts and the emotions that you have generated over countless experiences. And we tend to take that energy with us, lifetime after lifetime. Maybe you don't believe that you have more than this life. Well, let me tell you that you've already incarnated many times this time around, because none of you tonight, it might come a bit of a shock, are still wearing your 16-year-old meat suit. You incarnated out of that into a 17-year-old one, and then an 18-year-old one, and then a 21-year-old one. You remember that one? And then a 25-year-old one. And although your body has completely changed since the age of 2, you are still in it. Am I right? There's still an aspect of your consciousness that was in your 6-month-old baby and that was in your 10-year-old meat suit and is still here today. Am I right? So your consciousness is eternal and the meat suit comes and goes. The meat suit evolves. In fact, every time you breathe out 10 to the power of 22 atoms. That's 10 with 22 zeros attached to it. And every time you breathe in 10 to the power of 22 million atoms. 10 to the power of 22. I counted them one day when I was bored. A lot of atoms. So you are in a continual process. You, the form, you, the personality, are in a continual process of change. And you've been doing this dance for all of eternity. But there's something inside you that doesn't change. There's something inside you that transcends the 6-year-old body, the 10-year-old body, the 80-year-old body. What is that? Not the DNA. DNA comes and goes, and you can change your DNA anytime you want. You can change the color of your eyes. You can change the expression of your genes. We know through epigenetics that you're not genetically determined. And you have certain genes this time around, and next time you can have different genes. So it's not your genes that are permanent. It's consciousness itself. It's awareness. It's what's looking through your eyes tonight, right now. Right now, who you really are is looking through the eyes at me standing here talking to you. And that is another label for it. It's being. It's not your being. You see, the mind is a tool of division and separation. So in other words, you have a car, you have a house, maybe you have a religion, you have a spouse, you have children, you have a career, you have experiences, you have an ex, you have a body, you have a mind, you have beliefs. These are all things that you have, right? Who is doing the having? It's consciousness. Now, the consciousness I'm speaking about, the pure, unconditioned consciousness, is not separate from anything. It's the same consciousness that inhabits a rock, a tree, a planet, a solar system. And that is the being that you really are. You are it all. That's how magnificent you are. But you having a dream, called the Matrix, of separation, living in this particular meat suit. It's wonderful, because in this separation, we get to experience. If it wasn't for separation, if it wasn't for your mind, you couldn't have experience. How would you make love if there was no one to make love to, if it was only you? How would you have conflict and war if there was no one else to fight with? And we would be robbed of these experiences. In order to have a relationship, there's got to be you and there's got to be someone else. Am I right? And you think of the richness that relationship has given us just this time around. So it's wonderful to have this separateness. This is a wonderful cinema that we've gone into, of separateness. However, after 334 million movies, you know, the excitement of munching popcorn, sitting in the dark, watching a moving screen, ceases to have that allure anymore. And then there's something within you that stirs and says, look, maybe there's something more real than this film. Maybe there's something more than just this body, just this life. And I would suggest that that's what brought you here in this room tonight. There's a stirring in your soul that says, maybe it's time to go home. Maybe this dream that I've had, I've dreamt for long enough. And maybe time has arrived for me to wake up out of this dream. You see, although most of you think you live your lives, that you're in control of your lives, I'm going to say that most of what happens to you is not your choice. In fact, I know in my life the major things that have happened to me have not been my choice at all. But one thing is your choice, and that is where you place your attention, where you place your awareness, and the attitude as you go through life's experiences. That's what creates the movie for you, is your experience. And I would suggest that you didn't even choose to be here tonight. I would suggest that your soul chose to be here tonight. And there were subconscious thoughts that were given to you to say, 8 o'clock club, let's go and have a listen tonight. And you were guided here. You were guided because of an inner yearning for something more. I don't know if any of you in this room have ever had pain, ever had suffering. None of you? You can go. This talk tonight is for those who have had pain and have had suffering and have, at a deep soul level, said enough's enough. I want to transcend this pain, this suffering. There has to be something beyond this. But we have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten our own magnificence. And for most people, maybe not the people in the room, but for most people on the planet today, they look for this fulfillment on the outside. They look for this sense of being better in what they have and what they do and what they accomplish and what other people think of them. Generally, people are looking to find themselves in the world of form, not realizing that the being that this gentleman spoke about, which is your true essence, is not a somethingness. It's formless. It has no form. And so what we are doing in seeking to fulfill ourselves in the world of form is we have been moving further and further and further away from who and what we really are. And we have got lost in mind. You see, I believe that we created mind to experience as we have experienced, but we were never meant to lose ourselves in mind. And we got so caught up in our creations that we forgot gradually who and what we really were. And we got lost in our own dream. And I'm going to suggest that most of you sitting here tonight no longer have a mind. The mind actually has you. The mind actually owns you. In fact, most of you probably have no awareness of who you are outside of this chattering mind, this judgmental, preferential mind. Am I right? I mean, I've met a few really insane people in my life that go to bed at night and 1 o'clock in the morning, the mind is still going. I don't know if you know anyone like that. But some people are like that. I mean, you know, at 1 o'clock in the morning, there is nothing to fix. There's nothing to do. But no, the mind says, no, we really need to think about this problem. Any mums in the room? Any mothers? Yeah, a few of you? Now, one of the most important functions of a mother is to worry about their children. Am I right? Because then I'm a good mother if I'm worrying. Well, has worrying ever sorted anything out? Has worrying made your children happier? Has worrying made your children safer? Not at all. So why do you do it? Because it gives you a sense of self. It gives you a sense of identity. You know, I'm worrying. That must make me something, surely, because it must make me a good mother. And so we're continually looking for ourselves in mind, in the structures of mind, in the world of things. Now, we know at a deep level that we're not that, don't we? All of us in the room know we're not that. But we are too scared to let go of that. We are terrified of discovering that we are nothing. Because nothing terrifies the mind more than nothing. If someone walks up to you and says, you know, you're nothing. I mean, it's a terrible insult, isn't it? If you say to them, yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? It'll confuse them totally. You see, you are no thing. Being is no thingness. Life is no thingness. But because we don't honor that no thingness, we only honor the form, we suffer. Because form is all about change, is it not? Have you ever met any form that doesn't change? Form is always in the process. Even a granite rock is in the process of transformation. And all form comes and all form goes. And that scares the mind. And the mind clings to form, saying it shouldn't change. It actually wants change, but it actually fears change at the same time. Am I right? And that is the root cause of pain and suffering. It's clinging to that which is changing, thinking it shouldn't. And yet deep inside your mind, you know that is going to go. You know you're going to die, the you that you know yourself to be. And that fear, the fear of death, underlies all anxiety, all anger, all depression, all resentment, and all grief. It's the fear of your own mortality. But in truth, you are immortal. But the part of you you know yourself to be, the mind, the body, the accomplishments, the possessions, the relationships, the roles, that is all subject to death. And if you only know yourself through that world, you will continually be haunted by this anxiety and by this fear. Only when you start to realize who and what you really are can you let go of that suffering. How do we do that? How do we let go of our mind? So 21 years ago, I started the company I have now. It's called Mind Enhancement Systems. Because I'd done a mind power course. And I was so enamored with the way I could use my mind to accomplish things. It was fantastic. And I wanted to teach this in the world. And then about 2 years later, 2001, I was given a book to read. In fact, I have a book on the table over there. Not my book, you'll never get that out of my hands, but another one, another copy of it. It's called The Power of Now. And I started reading that book, and on page 3 or 4, he says, well, the only problem you have is the mind. The author of that book is Eckhart Tolle. And I said, Mr. Tolle, no, you're wrong. It's not that the mind's a problem. It's just that you need to expand it a bit, enhance it a bit, make it work a bit better. And the more I read into that book, I realized he was telling the truth, that in fact the only problem I'd ever had was my mind. And the mind didn't need enhancing. It was big enough already. I had a big ego. What the mind needed to do was to become my servant. And that is what I have worked on for the last 21 years. Taming the mind. So that now I can pick it up and use it, but it doesn't use me anymore. It doesn't use me. I don't live in fear and anxiety anymore. I don't worry, which confuses my partner, Michelle. You ought to be worrying. Worrying about what? There is nothing to worry when you know who you really are. So at that stage, 20 odd years ago, I had arthritis, very bad arthritis. They wanted to fuse my spine. So, it's a degenerative disease, incurable. And I was on medication. And I decided, no, something has to change. And incurable means curable from within. Yes. So I turned that around. And we went to a book launch on Saturday by Marla Naidu, a woman from Natal. And she also discovered this. She was completely crippled with MS. She was in so much pain, all she could do was lie in the fetal position. They were giving her anesthetic straight into her brain. That's how much pain she was in. Not only did she have MS, but she also had fibromyalgia. She had rheumatoid arthritis, and she had Hashimoto's disease and severe depression. And she cured herself, similar way to that I did, through changing the inner world. Her book has just come out now. It's on the table there if you want to buy it. It's called Flaming Challenge. It's extremely well written. And if you want the mechanics of how you can heal yourself from any disease, get that book. It's a really good book. But back then, there wasn't any book for me to read. And I had to slowly discover what worked and what didn't work. But the biggest part of my journey, look, the journey was physical. I had to learn what to do about my body. But the biggest journey was taming the mind, was discovering the power of presence, power of awareness, and transforming my life from the inside out. Here's a slide from Mr. Tolle, author of Power of Now. Many people who are going through the early stages of awakening process, no longer certain of what their outer purpose is. What drives the world no longer drives them. Seeing the madness of our civilization so clearly, they feel somewhat alienated from the culture around them. Some feel that they inhabit a no man's land between two worlds. They are no longer run by the ego, yet the arising awareness has not yet become fully integrated into their lives. Inner and outer purpose has not yet merged. Does that gel with anyone in the room? I think this is a state that many people find themselves in at the moment. We're all on a journey from baby to old, from birth to death. And many people seem in a tremendous rush to get somewhere. You meet people, they're very stressed, and it's all about going somewhere. It's going to the future, am I right? The future seems to have something that really pulls people along. I don't know why people are in such a hurry to get there, because it's not such a pretty ending, is it? And that is normal. But normal is mad. Can you see there? You're right. We race through life, hoping to get something more meaningful in the future, something of more value in the future. I lived my life for the first 30 years that way. I thought I have to become someone by the time I'm 30. I have to be a director. I don't know why. Director of a company. So yeah, worked very hard, more than anyone else, and by the time I was 30, I was this director of this company. And then, was I happy? No, I was more fearful, more anxious than ever before, because I thought, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, and what happens if someone discovers that I don't know what I'm doing? And so we're always rushing to the future. We're scared of the present moment. It's like a continual race. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It's always about more, is it not? More. I have to have more time. More knowledge, maybe. That's maybe why some of you came here, to get some more information. And we're always rushing. Is this normal? Is it normal to be anxious, to be depressed? Well, in America, a few years ago, I saw figures, 43 million prescriptions of Prozac. 43 million prescriptions of one drug. And that was about 6 years ago. Is that normal? Is that how you want to live your lives? You have to ask yourself a question. Is there a better way to live your life than the way you've been living it up to now? And the answer is yes, there is. But you have to make a choice. The choice, very simple. It's between two four-letter words. The word fear and the word love. We've heard that before, haven't we? Fear and love. Fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. I am what I do, I am what I have, and I am what other people think of me. That's fear. I am this body. I am my relationships. I am my roles. I am my story. And the love that we seek is not a thing. It's not something that can even fit inside your understanding. Who in the room understands love? Hands up. You understand love? Tell me what love is. But you said you know love, so tell me what it means to you. You're telling me what love isn't. Love isn't judgment, is it? No. But what is love? That is the truth. You see, everything you can describe, you can put inside your head, can't you? Because it is a somethingness. It has form. It has shape. But love doesn't have that. Am I right? It's not something that can be understood with your mind. But it can be experienced, can it not? Absolutely. So love is an experience where fear is a thought that you then get to experience. But the primary basis for fear is your mind. Is your mind. Think about that. The choice you have to make is between your story and reality. It's a very simple choice. You're going to choose your history and your future or what is in this moment. It's a very simple choice. Because if you are really in this moment and you're not carrying any attachment to yesterday or to tomorrow, there is nothing but love. Love is all there is in reality. It's only when we leave the present moment that we experience fear and anxiety and anger and resentment and grief and guilt. These are all functions of the mind, and I will show that before we leave here tonight. What is awakening? What is this process? We all would like to awaken, yes or no? Yeah? So what is awakening? Eckhart says, awakening is a shift in consciousness in which thinking and awareness separates. For most people, this is not an event, but a process they undergo. Most people's awareness is completely attached to thinking. There's no separation whatsoever. Down the road here, we have a place called Falkenberg, right? Anyone been inside there? It's full of mad people. I mean, these people are talking about realities that no one else can perceive. If you meet them, they'll tell you a whole story about what's happening, and it doesn't bear any relationship to reality. Am I right? And they're mad. Now, who of you walk around talking to yourself? No one in this room, hopefully. Who of you has at least 2 or 3 people living inside here? And I should have said that to them. No, but if you'd said that to them, and you shouldn't have done that. But if I did, am I right? We're all mad. We're all on the journey of madness. It's only a degree. It's a degree of, can we keep our mouths shut? And we don't express all these words that are going on in our head. They're not able to do that. The ones that are locked up are not able to see they have no idea of presence. They only know 100% the story in their head. Am I right? Luckily, most of you have some sort of connection with reality. And you don't let your mind completely take you over. Except when you get mad. Except when the pain body comes out for feeding. And then suddenly there's no presence there at all. It's just drama and accusations. Am I right? Do we have any pain bodies in the room tonight? Has anyone got a pain body? Do you know what a pain body is? Yeah? An accumulation of unconscious emotion, thoughts, and judgments and preferences that we all carry around with us, individually and collectively. We're all attached to a pain body. And that pain body is completely mad. There's no presence in it whatsoever. And when it comes out for feeding, presence is gone. There's only madness there. So Eckhart is saying that this detachment of your awareness from your thinking mind is very necessary if you want to be free of pain and suffering. It's a very necessary process. And for most people, it's actually a journey. For some people, like Mr. Eckhart, it happened overnight. If you know his story, at 29, he was considering suicide. He was deeply unhappy. There's a whole long story that goes with that. He was doing a PhD, and one of his professors that he really respected in psychology committed suicide. And he thought, if they don't have the answer, and I'm worshipping them, then I'm lost, completely lost. And he spiraled into deep depression. And then he was lifted out of it one night, and he became enlightened. And there are a few other individuals. Byron Katie, if you know the story of Byron Katie, she suffered from depression, wouldn't even lie in the hospital bed anymore. She'd then lie on the floor. And then she also had this enlightenment experience. And a few other people, Adi Shanti, there are a few other people that are alive today. Many others, actually. But what did they do differently to you and me? Why did they suddenly become enlightened? Why did they have a sudden separation between thinking and awareness? Because they had suffered a bit more than you. They had suffered to the point of surrendering, of complete giving up their mind. None of you have suffered enough yet. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here tonight. You've suffered a lot, but not enough to surrender. And the separation happens when you surrender. Surrender to what? What are you surrendering to? Are you surrendering what your mother did to you when you were 10 years old or 5 years old? Are you surrendering to the corrupt government? Are you surrendering to who knows what? No. You're just surrendering to just this moment. Just sitting on this chair, listening to John. That's all. And you're 100% here. There's not a thought in your mind that is awake. But most of us have a judgment about what John is saying. You have a judgment about the chairs. You know, for this money, they could have given me a lazy boy, and they could have at least offered me a cup of tea when I walked in the door. And I hope this talk's going to get a bit more interesting because I'm falling asleep here. And that's the mind. Continually going, judging. Until you suffer enough to completely surrender your mind. No one becomes enlightened as a direct result of pain and suffering. No one does. But everyone becomes enlightened through the process of surrender. And generally, pain and suffering leads you to the door of surrender. But you don't have to go through pain and suffering to get there. In the Christian terminology, that's called the way of the cross. If you know that, the way of the cross, through pain and suffering. But you don't have to do that. That's the old way. The new way is you can actually give up now. You can give up moment to moment. The Course in Miracles, if you know that book, says forgive each moment as it occurs. Let it go. Don't hold on to it. Let it go. But don't forget, the mind gets its identity from resentment. The mind gets its identity from judgment. And so never ask the mind to surrender, because the mind will never give up. Never. You have to do it, not your mind. And when you only know yourself as the mind, it's impossible to give up, because the mind will not do it. The mind would rather give you arthritis or cancer or MS than give up. The mind would rather kill you than surrender. This separation of awareness from thinking is the journey of awakening. And the good news is that we're now in a cycle where the universal consciousness is now assisting us in this process. You know, in spring, particularly in the Western Cape, the flowers come out. You know, we go out to Paternoster and we see all these beautiful flowers. It's wonderful. You go there now and they're not out. Why? Because it's not the time to flower. Spring is the time to flower. And we, in a big cosmic cycle, are in the season of awakening. That's the good news. However, there's a bit of bad news that goes with that. In order to get you to awaken, the universe has to squeeze you a little bit. It has to make the form a little bit uncomfortable for you, because it's easier to wake up from a nightmare than a comfortable dream. Yes or no? If you're lying there and you're having this wonderful dream, there's no incentive to wake up. So the universe will give you a lot of challenges, both individually and collectively, to make us say there has to be a better way. And I would greet every single adversity that you're currently experiencing in your life, every challenge that you have, with a sense of gratitude, because that adversity is the squeezing hand of the universe. And out of that, you can discover who you are. A few years ago, my partner died of cancer. And that has to be one of the hardest things to go through, is the death of a loved one. From diagnosed to death was 3 weeks. It was a sudden death, which is beautiful and wonderful because she didn't suffer, didn't have any medication, nothing like that. It was wonderful. However, you realize that when someone dies, your fabric that you've attached yourself to is torn. And even though I'd done so much work, there was still an attachment to the story. But there's a wonderful gift in that. Leonard Cohen says, the cracks that let the light in. And when something challenges you in life, there is a crack. And if you're prepared to surrender into that crack, you find the release, the freedom. And one of the things I'm writing at the moment is a book on grief. And it's called 15 Seconds, because that's all it takes to heal grief, to heal about a way of grief. Now, your mind will start up later and come back, and you'll grieve and feel the pain again. But it only takes 15 seconds to clear the mind and to enter a state of bliss and peace and even joy. At the time, I wrote a few pieces, and hospice picked them up, and they've incorporated that in their teaching, because that was my direct experience. And I had a choice. You can suffer, or you can be here. That's the choice. I can be in reality, or I can be in the story in my head. So even in life's greatest adversity, there's the opportunity for surrender. Most of us resist death, the death of the loved ones around us and the death of ourselves, because, you know, we all know we're these spiritual beings with a human body, or a meat suit, as I say. We all know that. Am I right? Until you go to the doctor and get diagnosed with a terminal illness, and then you suddenly find, oh, no, I'm really attached to this body. I don't want to let it go. And fear, overwhelming fear, is your first response to a diagnosis like that. It always is, because we are attached. And only as we start to dissolve that attachment can we find the freedom, the peace, and the love that we're looking for. And for most of us, this is a journey, not an event. It's a journey, a gradual journey of surrendering. We surrender a little bit, and then we get attached a little bit. And then we suffer a little bit. And then we surrender a little bit. And then we get attached again and suffer again. Am I right? But because it is the season of awakening, we've been given a lot of support and a lot of help in this releasing process. Where before, maybe you had to go to a monastery for 30 years, and maybe you had to wear nails in your shoes and flagellate yourself and all of that to actually release. You don't have to do that today. It's a much simpler process today. The awakening is the awakening to what and who you really are, which is love. This is the journey that we're on. Not the love of attachment. For most people, love has some sort of sense of I, mine, me. Am I right? Love has none of that. This is the love that passes all human understanding. This is the love that your heart yearns for. This is the unconditional love. Not the conditional love, but the unconditional love. We don't yearn to be loved conditionally, do we? Provided we bring home the food and clean the house and be a good girl or be a good boy, then we're going to deserve love. That's not the type of love we want, is it? We want this unconditional love. And that comes from realizing who and what you really are at the deepest level. And it can't be given to you. It can only be realized. You cannot receive love, and you cannot give love. Because it's not a thing. You can only give things. You can only receive things. Love is an opening in your awareness to what is already here. That is love. There was a book written a number of years ago by Marianne Williamson, Return to Love. That's our journey, return to love. So the awakening journey is a return to love. When Nelson Mandela was in jail, if you think of him when he went into jail, he was a very angry man. A very angry man against an unjust system. And if you want to know how angry he was, look at who he married. She reflected that anger. But however, in jail, something changed, didn't it? And the man that emerged from jail 26 years later wasn't the man that went in. When he was interviewed by Oprah, and that episode was never broadcast in South Africa, she asked him, but what changed you from that angry freedom fighter into a statesman? He said 26 years. But what really shifted him was that book. He read that book in jail toward the end. And when he was released from jail, and a couple of hours later, 2 hours later, he was on the Grand Parade in Cape Town, he quoted twice from that book. That's the impact it had made on him. And he knew that if he left with his resentment, it was going to poison him and poison South Africa. Now, I'm not saying he was a totally transformed man. He still had certain baggages which he had to work through. He wasn't a saint at all, but he was definitely on the journey of awakening. And he'd made huge strides during those 26 years to realize who he really was. And thank goodness for that awakening within him, because I don't think we would have made it through the way we did make it through without that bloodshed that had been so threatened at the time. As one person awakens, we influence a huge number of people around us. So this journey of awakening isn't a selfish thing to do. It's something you can do for your brother. It's something you can do for mankind. We're so wanting to, put carbon taxes on CO2 emissions and things like that. This is the real work, not that. This will transform the planet. Mother Earth is suffering through our unconsciousness. Mother Earth will celebrate our awakening. And only through awakening will we change our behavior. You can't pass laws. Laws don't work. We have to work. Awakening and transformation is an inside-out job. And this journey is a journey into this beautiful, wonderful emptiness of true being. And in there you find peace. Isn't peace something you yearn for? Yes or no? Why can't you be at peace now, by the way? Well, look at the government, I mean, for a start. Look at the roads and the potholes. Look at the economy. And look at my mother-in-law. Oh my God, there's no ways I can be at peace. Am I right? Look at Trump in America. I mean, there's no ways I can be at peace. So when can you be at peace? When is the only time and the only place you can be at peace? In the here and now. In the here and now. And the only thing you have to do to let go of, to find that peace that passes all human understanding, is by releasing your attachment to your thoughts. Because Trump is not the problem. It's your thoughts about Trump that's the problem. Your mother-in-law is not the real problem. It's your thoughts about the mother-in-law that's the problem. It's not the government that's the problem. It's your thoughts about the government that's the problem. It's not the starving children that are the problem. It's your thoughts about the starving children that rob you of peace. It's your thoughts that rob you of the knowledge of where you are always and who you are forever. So those of you who read the notice that I sent out about tonight's talk, I said I was going to give you a map. Anyone read that? Did anyone come here to get this treasure map? Yeah? And on this treasure map, X marks a spot. Not really. It was the only graphic I could find. So what is this map that we can use to walk the journey deeper and deeper into love? What is this map? So we all live our lives through certain belief patterns, do we not? And the reason we have those belief patterns is because we believe they're true and real. Am I right? Who here has a false belief? Hands up, all those who have false beliefs. All your hands should be up, actually. We believe our beliefs to be true because we've attached ourselves to them. No belief is true. No map is true, because a map is a representation of something. Am I right? So if you go to London, for example, and you get a true topographical map that shows you every little up and down and every river, and you want to get from Leicester Square to Piccadilly Circus, is that topographical map going to help you? Not at all. What do you need? You need a schematic diagram of the underground. Am I right? That's not true in distance or direction, but boy, that map works. So you don't assess maps as to whether they are true or false. You don't assess beliefs as to whether they're true or false. You assess them as to whether they serve you, whether they take you where you want to go. And that's why I started this evening's presentation by asking you why you're here. Because if you do not know where you want to go, how can you choose a map to take you there? And part of the awakening process is to make love, peace, and joy more important to you than any other distraction. And this is the map that will help take you there. How are we doing time-wise? What is the time? So we are born in a certain place and a certain time. And Michelle, my partner, she's part of the new business we have, which is coaching and counseling people into awakening. But she's also an astrologer. And she will tell you that this little dot over here determines a lot of what you're going to experience in your life. It's amazing. It's actually scary of how much of your life is already evident in the moment, the place, the time that you're born. And so we're born at a certain time in a certain place, and we race off to go and get to this place over here, which is when we shuttle off our mortal coil. Am I right? And most of us are on this dash, as I said earlier, rushing to the future, because there's something over here that is really worthwhile rushing for. It's like that carrot at the end of the stick. And it's a 4-letter word. What are we all rushing for? The 4-letter word? That's not what you think. It's hope. Hope keeps us running to the future, am I right? So tonight, maybe we are situated, let's draw a sort of different color. Maybe we're situated somewhere in the middle here. I'm not an artist, and that's something else Michelle is, by the way. She's a process art facilitator. I'm not an artist, I just draw a stick figure. So here we are tonight. And as we sit here tonight, some of us are mad. Yes, some of us are mad in that we have a big bubble coming out of our head that becomes more real than reality. And this bubble is called the past. It's based on our memory. It's our story. Am I right? It's our history. And then we have another bubble coming out of our head this side. And this is our future, where we hope things are going to get better. Am I right? And this is based on the brain's, the left hemisphere particularly, brain's ability to anticipate. So while we're sitting here tonight, some of our awareness is occupied in this bubble, is it not, as I speak? And some of our awareness is occupied in this bubble. When's John going to get to the exciting part? Are they going to serve us tea and coffee after tonight? We want to know these things. I mean, they're really important. And so as we sit here, very little of our attention is in reality, and most of it is occupied by a story. And that story is the matrix, based in time. Time, mind. The matrix depends on time and mind. You can't have time without mind, and mind without time. Take time away, there's no mind. Take mind away, there's no time. Time is a function of mind. And this whole matrix, it's a sign of infinity. Can you see that? Like Siem Dalan or whatever. Goes on and on and on. What are the soap operas that you all watch? They go on and on and on. Yeah, the players come and the players go, and people get old and die, and then they come back from the dead and they marry their cousin. I've watched a few episodes on TV. I know what happens. But this whole matrix here is not real. But it appears real. It's false evidence appearing real. And that rules this matrix. I am what I do. I am what I have. I am what I've accomplished. I am my education. I am my religion. I am my race. I am my gender. Am I right? I am these roles that I play. I am the daughter. I am the mother. I am the father. I am the bad person. I am the good person. These are all the roles that we play. They're all tied up in here. My PhD. Oh, it's so important. I hope I'm going to get it. And so this is normal. Running on this timeline is normal, and normal is mad. It's insane. Because what I said earlier, where is sanity? Sanity is presence, is it not? Sanity is when your focus is coming through your prefrontal lobe of the brain. When this lights up, you're here. When this lights up, you're not here. You're processing information away from reality. Reality is here in the present moment, but most of us spend most of our lives in the matrix. Now, this matrix is made up of bricks. We get 60,000 of them every day. Well, between 40 and 70,000 bricks a day. So on average, 60,000. And these bricks, these 60,000 bricks, are our thoughts. Like the atoms I breathe out every moment, I counted them one day when I was bored. 60,000 thoughts. And when you wake up, for the first millisecond, there's no matrix, is there? You don't even know your name. You know your gender. You don't know your age. And then suddenly you remember, oh, yes, oh, no. Am I right? That's how we start our day. As we sort of start building the matrix again, you're in the state of bliss. It's wonderful. Particularly if you've taken cannabis oil. You really feel good. And then the story comes back. And the sad thing about this, although these bricks can be used to build anything you want today, the sad thing is that 95% of these bricks that you used yesterday will be regurgitated and used again today, and they are repetitive and redundant. As I said earlier, those who think they're a good mother because they worry about their children, you're just regurgitating thoughts over and over and over again. They're for no purpose. You're not going to sort any situation out. 5% of your thoughts are constructive. You need to plan something. You need to work something out. Fine, 5%. 95% repetitive nonsense made up by the brain to give you an identity, to give you a sense of self-worth maybe, but to give you a sense of self. And what self is that you're constructing in the matrix? Wayne Dyer's definition of this self, he says, is edging God out. Edging God out. That's a self that gets created by this matrix. Winston Churchill's definition of this part of the journey, Winston Churchill said, this part of the journey is made up of one damn thing after another. That was his definition of history. One damn thing after another. Now, the truth is that your thoughts create your future. And if 95% of your thoughts are repetitive and redundant, guess what you're going to carry on making over here? One damn thing after another. It's going to show up in your life. So a lot of people in the past have changed very little in life. They're born into a certain consciousness and they leave with very little change in a lifetime. It's very sad. But we are now blessed with an opening to completely shift our consciousness. This is normal and this is insane. This is the normal human journey. The human doing. You can read my writing. Human doing. And that's who most of us thinkers are. We are the doingnesses of our life. Am I right? But what are you really? Where is being in this diagram? Being is in the depth. This narrow portal between past and future. This is where being is. Being. This is doing. How much of your day is spent in being and how much of the day is spent in doing? How much of your day is spent thinking about doing? Thinking what you did yesterday and what you're going to do tomorrow? And how much of your day is spent in just beingness itself? If you want to be a good mother, give up worrying and start bringing beingness into your interaction with your children. Presence is the one present that children thrive on. Where is love in this diagram? Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I got it once. Remember that love? Oh no, it turned to hate. Everything in the matrix is dualistic in nature. Everything in the matrix has an up and a down. Everything has a positive and a negative. You cannot have a one-sided thought. Every thought is polarized. The mind is polarized. The mind polarizes everything into positives and negatives. You see, this journey is actually that. Now, have you ever seen a mountain without a valley? Have you ever seen a valley without a mountain? Can you have an up without a down? Now, what we hope for is that over here somewhere we're just going to have mountains. That's what we're just going to have, this lovely ups, all these positiveness, and we'll get rid of all the negatives. Am I right? You know, if we go to the right church and we find the right religion and pay the right amount of money, we'll find a place over here that's just positives. Am I right? And that's a nonsense story because this is dualistic in nature. Being, on the other hand, is neither positive or negative. It has no polarity. It's just an isness. Those of you who want to join a church, a very good church, I'm going to start a church of business. Anyone can join this provided you pay me 10% of your earnings. Come along. Isness is being. What's your name? No, it isn't. What's your real name? I am Lex, right? Can you change Lex? You can go to the deeds office and change it. Can you change I am? I am is your real name. It doesn't change. It was there before you were given a label. It's there after you're given a label. You can change the labels, but you can't change the I am. Am I right? Where in this diagram is your true name? You see, it's in the depth of life. The I am is in the depth, not the story. Now, John is a construct of the story. I am John, right? I am Lex. Lex had a beginning, a middle, and an end. But the I am is eternal. The I am is not in time. It's in presence. And where is love? This diagram, where is love, is not in the story of polarity. That's not the story, that's not the love we seek. That's a conditional love, isn't it? Where is the unconditional love that we yearn for? Well, in this diagram, where's your heart? If you have a look in the diagram, there's your body, and your heart is about here, is it not? Your heart is in the vertical plane. Your heart forms 2 weeks before the brain. Your heart is always in the present moment. There's way more information going from your heart to your brain than from your brain to your heart. Your heart is the seat of consciousness in your body. They've done tests on ballerinas and gymnasts, and they find that the brain cannot control their movements, that it comes from an impulse, a field from the heart, because they measure how fast the electrical signals go from the brain to the body. They find it way too slow to orchestrate that. Sportsmen call it being in the zone. When you're operating from awareness, it's called being in the zone. It's a far superior way of being. Einstein said thinking had very little to do on the path to discovery. It came from intuitive awareness, he said, which was a sacred gift. That's the sacred gift, and that is our story. This is our creation, and this is the divine. And we've made our creation more important than the divine, and that's why we suffer. We suffer because we make the story more important than life itself. Where is life in this diagram? Well, your mind will say, yeah, it was over there. I had a life and I'm going. No. Life itself is always here and now. Life is not past. Life is not future. Life animates your body now, does it not? It beats your heart now. You can wiggle your toes, yes? Wiggle your ears? That's a bit more difficult. But it is life doing that, is it not? You can breathe. The blood is being transported from your lungs to your cells. Life is always now, because life and I am and being is one and the same. You are life. You do not have a life. You cannot lose your life. You might lose your body, you might lose your car, but you cannot lose life, because you are life. You're it. Don't try and understand what I'm saying with your mind. Your mind cannot comprehend what I'm saying. When I was 5 years old, I apparently died, and I was in hospital in Zimbabwe, and my mother prayed and prayed to the angels, and suddenly I came back alive again. I don't have any memory of that. I didn't see any bright lights or anything. But I do know that from that age of 5, I was asking my mother these big questions about the nature of God and who I am and the universe. And I remember my sister had gone off to school. I hadn't started school yet, and she was a dressmaker. She was making something there in the dining room. And I was asking her these big questions, and she said, John, you can't pour the whole ocean into a thimble. You can't put all this information inside your brain. It doesn't work. It doesn't go. And to realize that you can't put the infinite into the finite. So this is not something to be understood, but it's what this lady said about love. Love is not to be understood. It's to be experienced. Life is to be experienced. Your beingness is to be experienced, not understood. And this is the peace that passes all human understanding. Not sorting out your story. I saw a bumper sticker that said, I finally sorted out my story, but I still died anyway. It's not about this. It's about this. And this is always here. It never moves anywhere. It's like the light shining through a movie at the back of the cinema. The movie carries on going past the light. The light never moves. You are the light of awareness, the light of consciousness, the light of love. You never move. You're always here and always now. What time is it? No, it's the now. And you can ask yourself that question anytime. The answer will always be the same. It is the now. It does not move. It does not go anywhere. You are that. You are the now. It's who you are. And that is the biggest realization you can ever have, to know that you are presence, you are eternity, and you are love. Any questions about what I've shared so far? Any questions? Now you get a choice. The choice is, do you want to carry on being asleep in your matrix, where you make your past and your future more important than God? Because that's what you do. Not the God of religion, which is a story. I'm not talking about that God. The God that wakes up angry in the morning and smites a few million people with a tsunami. Not that type of God. I'm talking about the God of presence. God is presence. You are presence. What does that mean? God is presence. You are presence. You are the I am. It's the only name that God gave him to himself in the Bible. When Moses went to the burning bush and said, and by the way, we think now Moses was tripping a little bit there. True. That's what the archaeologists tell us. He went to the bush and he said, but who are you? Give me a name. And the bush says, Aya Asha Aya, I am that I am. He said, that's my name for all of eternity. And guess what? It's your name. You are it. Not the John, not the somethingness that you've created in your mind. If John goes around saying, I'm God, you can lock me up. I'll be in Falkenberg. Because that's mad. But this is it. The pure essence of being is the divine. And how magnificent is the divine? And you are that. You are that. One of the tools that I can give you to start working with on this journey of awakening is to start using the infinite creative power of God in your lives. God, the God that I speak of, not the judgmental guy with a beard on the cloud, but the divine, is the primary force of all of creation. And whatever you put after that name, you give power to. So if you say, I am sick and tired, what are you creating? If you say, I am worried, what are you creating? They say worry is praying for what you don't want. And it's absolutely true. You're giving energy to something you don't want. You're giving power to something you don't want. So here is the one tool I can share with you tonight. Use the power of all of creation in the service of creating something worthwhile. So if you're sick, I am healthy. If you are financially challenged, you say, I am abundant. There's another guy, a guy who comes to Cape Town occasionally. I know him quite well, John D. Martini. He comes and gives talks, and he talked about, at the age of 8, being told he would never read or write or amount to anything, and he always cries when he tells the story, if you've seen him. And at the age of 14, he was dropped off on the highway with a surfboard. His parents didn't want him anymore. So he went off to California and surfed. And at 17, he overdosed on some drugs. And he was brought back to life by a guy called Paul Bragg. And Paul Bragg said to him, I want you to say this affirmation every single day of your life. Now, John was dyslexic. He couldn't read or write. And Paul Bragg gave him an affirmation that said, I am a genius and I apply my wisdom. John today is a genius. If you've met John, I mean, he reads about 2.5 books a day, 100% recall. Day. He was asked to talk to the Cancer Association in America. He quickly read 86 books on the subject. You read 86 books on a subject, you world authority. That is a genius, but he wasn't a genius. But he added that intention to the name of the Creator. Muhammad Ali was not a very good boxer at all. And he started, when he was a youngster, saying, I am the greatest. He said it over and over and over again. And when he won the world championship, he stood with the belt. He said, I'm the greatest. The world said, oh, you're so arrogant. But that was his affirmation. It was the affirmation that took him to that level of creation. So tonight, make a commitment to, instead of using your mind in a negative, repetitive, destructive way, to start using it positively. And if I can give you a suggestion, here's a powerful affirmation that you can start working with from today onwards. I am magnificent. Now, when you start saying that affirmation, it might not be true. The evidence might point in the opposite direction. Muhammad Ali was not the greatest when he started saying that. John DeMartini couldn't even read when he started saying that affirmation. So you might have no awareness of your magnificence. I know you are magnificent. I can see it, but you can't see it. But if you start saying that affirmation hundreds of times, at least, Louise Hay said at least 200 times a day, you will make a positive impact in your matrix. And you will start to create different experiences in the future. I am magnificent. Anyone in the room wants some more love? Who wants some more love? Come see me afterwards. We all yearn for a bit more love, don't we? It's who you are, but we don't know it. So how about this lovely affirmation? I am in love. How about that one? We know that when we're in love, our immune system goes up, our intelligence goes up, the world out there gets a lot rosier, doesn't it? When we're in love. Who would like to live their lives in love? Well, you are in it already. You're just not aware of it. So, let's just try this. Let's embarrass ourselves by saying our real name and then in love. We're going to say, I am in love on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I am in love. But strange, wasn't it? Eh? With what? You're not with anything. You're just in it. So you can imagine there's a wonderful ocean above you of love. An infinite ocean. And you're the tap. All you have to do is become open and love flows through you. A tap does not create water, does it? What does a tap do? It opens and the water flows. As you open, love flows through you. It's not something you can do. It's not a doingness at all. It's not a doing. Love comes through the portal of being. Count of 3 again. 1, 2, 3. I am in love. Let's try that one last time. But this time really mean it. 1, 2, 3. I am in love. And as you start to make that real for yourself, so your immune system increases, your intelligence increases, your problem-solving ability improves. There's a wonderful, wonderful gifts waiting for you as you start to align your awareness away from fear and into love. That's the journey of awakening.